reign, the rich will be sent away empty. Jesus uses a parable to warn against identifying the worth of one's life with the value of one's possessions, rather than one's relationship with God. A reading from Luke, chapter 12. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly. And he thought to himself, "What should I do, for I have no place to store my crops?" Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be?' So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich towards God." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Please be seated. There was once a welder, a good man, who worked very hard for his living. He hardly ever took vacations, and he saved his money. He wanted to retire early and live the good life in Florida. At age 63, he had finally attained his goal. He'd put in his 40 years at the company and had enough money to kick back and enjoy life with his wife. They'd picked out a new home in Florida and sold their Chicago house. A couple weeks before they had planned to leave, he was out mowing his lawn. His wife saw him collapse as he was mowing. She rushed out, but there was nothing to be done. The man was dead of a heart attack. So might go a modern retelling of the parable of the rich man, with one exception. My story is true. I know. As a chaplain, I comforted the man's widow. I've seen many other similar tragedies in my work as a chaplain and pastor through the years. Stories like these are unsettling. We don't want to think such deaths happen, but they do. When we hear them, we're tempted to distance ourselves, to say what happened to them couldn't possibly happen to us. That in some way, the people we hear about may have deserved their fate. We could say, "I bet that Chicago welder didn't eat right and didn't get much exercise." That might be true, but I do know that good diet and exercise are not always enough to prevent a heart attack. The great running guru of the 1970s, Jim Fixx, died of a heart attack. Likewise, it would be easy to say that the man in Jesus' parable was a nasty man and got what he deserved. But Jesus doesn't say that. No, Jesus wanted the point of the story to simply be about the farmer saving money, buying good things, and storing them away. So sadly, as much as I'd like to squirm out of it, either of these men, the farmer or the welder, could be me or any of you. We are left with the disheartening conclusion that what happened to either of these men could happen to us at any time. It's downright uncomfortable. And I'm sure Jesus wanted us to be uncomfortable. This parable was not meant to be a parable about evil landowners. It's about us. It's meant to be a parable about us and our possessions, however we got them. Jesus calls the man in the parable a fool for no other reason than that he piled up riches for himself and was hoping to sit back and enjoy life. The man in the parable was doing wrong only because he focused all his time and energy on the things of this life. I don't think the man deliberately set out to ignore the spiritual side of life. I expect it just happened gradually, just like it happens with any of us. I don't think the man in the parable set out to be selfish. I think it happened gradually, just like it happens to any of us. Outside of the church, how much time have you had for God lately? Oh, there are people who set out deliberately to ignore anything but money in their lives. One of my meteorology classmates, Ron, wanted to go into broadcasting precisely because he could make a bundle. I recall him saying, "Money is the most important thing in my life." People ask me, "What about happiness?" I say to them, "Give me more money and I'll be happy." Ron sounded like he was joking. I know. But he was serious, dead serious. Nearly 35 years later, I wonder what became of him. Now we hear of someone like Ron, and we excuse ourselves by saying, "I'm not materialistic, not like him." And it's true. There aren't many people who are quite as caught up in things as my classmate Ron was. But do we American Christians spend more time and effort than we need to on buying more and having more? In today's parable, Jesus shakes us up by saying, which life are you living? Are you living for today, for this earth, or are you living for eternity? The American dream has always been to have your kids and grandkids better off than you are. Most of the time that means better off financially or having greater possessions. But when is enough really enough? We are all caught up in the materialism which has saturated our society. It has sickened our nation. When I was in seminary more than 20 years ago, I was disgusted with the East Coast materialism I saw. My ex-wife Maury wasn't accepted at work because she didn't have the right clothes, or the right makeup, or the right amount of jewelry. A co-worker of hers worked 2 shifts so she could provide her kids with the finer things in life. A nice, large house, a swimming pool, even a pony. The only problem was that Karen was developing heart trouble from working so hard. And she was too busy for time with her kids and too tired to enjoy what little time she had with them. I'm no different than anyone else in America. I have a materialistic streak too. A few years ago, I bought some leather-bound, gilt-edged books from Book Club, the 100 greatest books. I can't tell you how much I paid for them. They are lovely books. Now my house is filled with dozens of deluxe books. Trophies, not all of which I've read, and which I seldom read again. How many of you out here listening to me today have things cluttering your garage and house, things that you haven't had time for lately and likely never will? Our parable reminds us of who we Christians should be. Jesus tells us, spend more time on things that last forever. Everything in this world can vanish gradually over time or in an instant at the moment of our deaths. The point in today's parable is a hard one for us Americans to swallow. But at the moment of our death, looking back over our lives, what are we going to say is important? Our possessions or our accomplishments, our relationships, our faith? There's an assumption going around that families need 2 incomes to survive in today's world. That is true for many of us. In my own experience, when the kids were little and both of us were working full-time, much of that second salary went to pay for the extra car, daycare, higher taxes, and eating out when, quite frankly, we were too tired to make dinner. How about you? All of us could have a lot more time for the things of the heart and the spirit if we gave up things considered normal in America today, but which are really luxuries. a good many Americans live on the edge. How much time would we have if we lived not on the brink of financial disaster, but more like our parents and grandparents lived? Houses today are more expensive than those built a generation ago, but they're also bigger and more lavish than they used to be. We have nearly twice the amount of space per person in our houses as a generation or two back. What would happen to America if we Americans lived more simply so we could concentrate on more important matters, so we could concentrate on the things of the Spirit, the things that nothing and no one can ever take away from us? Jesus wasn't against possessions. He wasn't against our enjoying ourselves. His first miracle was to create wine for a wedding. But what Jesus says in today's parable is simply this: where is your heart? In heaven or on earth? Locked in today or set on eternity? It doesn't take great evil to live only for this life, just ordinary neglect. So easily, any of us can get caught up in the whirlwind of selfish consumerism, which fills our houses, but which empties our spirits. Jesus says that as much as we focus on ourselves and our possessions, we are fools. As much as we focus on others and on God, we are blessed. This is God's word today, and it's true. I've seen this time and time again as people describe their accomplishments, what is most important to them, to me, at the moment of their deaths. Are we in America sacrificing a life well lived for the passing pleasure of having more things, however good they might be? We make the choice to live as we are living today. Nobody is forcing us to live for today, to buy for today, to think only of today, of this life. Wait a minute, some of you might say. What about the American dream? What about having our kids and our grandkids better off than we are? As I said, most of the time that means better off financially. But what would happen if we started to define the American dream another way? What if having your kids and grandkids better off meant having them better off emotionally, physically, spiritually? What if the American dream was having our kids and grandkids happier in their lives than we were, and happier in their marriages? I suspect that this is the original, true American dream that has been distorted over time, corrupted by advertisers and by our hunger to buy more and to have more. You see what's happened? We've taken a wonderful dream, the American dream, and cheapened it into mere money and things. Don't get me wrong. We all have worked hard to get ahead financially, and we need to, if we are to have food and shelter and clothing for us and for our families. But what if we worked just as hard to get ahead spiritually? I suspect then that our priorities would be completely different. Instead of going into debt to have a larger house, better furniture, sooner than our parents and grandparents, instead, we might say, how can I be more focused on others than my parents could be? What can I sacrifice to find time to help other people? To be there for my kids and my grandkids, or to make time to be with God? Where is my time and where is my energy going? These are tough questions. Questions that demand tough decisions. They may be the most important decisions we ever have to make. And we make them every day and every moment of our lives. May God, in all wisdom, help us